cloud. Here we go.
Okay, well, welcome everybody. It is Wednesday, April 20th at 10:02. We are here for the Northern Lake Champlain Basin Water Quality Council meeting, and I would like to call this meeting to order. Okay. So we'll move on to a review and approval of the meeting minutes from March 17th, 2022. Dan, you were going to do just a brief review. Everyone should have received these via email or they're posted on the website as well.
Yeah, great, thanks. So the meeting of March 17th was our inaugural meeting, pretty robust attendance, which was good. I provided an overview of Act 76, the Clean Water Service Provider Model, and the role of Basin Water Quality Councils. Next agenda item was just a discussion of policies that the Basin Water Quality Council will adopt, abiding by open meetings law, public participation policy, modified Robert's Rules of Order, conflict of interest provisions, things like that, and we'll get into that here. Then the council was formally, the 9 members were formally recognized, seated, or as DEC has described it, impaneled. So the 9 members, Kent Henderson and Andrea Morganti for the watershed organizations, Dave Wheeler, Ken Mervis for the municipal representation, the NRCD's Molly Varner and Remy Crittall, the RPC's Dean Pearson, Karen Adams, and the land conservation organizations, Emily Alger. And then the council then approved the following alternates. Don McFeeder is substituting for Mr. Henderson, Roger Kraus for Andrea Morganti, Thomas Breeselden is sort of a floating alternate depending which municipal seat is not there. Similarly, Lauren Weston from Franklin County NRCD would be the floating alternate for the NRCD seats. The RPC, the alternate for Dean Pearson Northwest is Catherine Dimitrick. Miles Waite is the alternate for Karen Adams, and we do not yet have an alternate for the land conservation organizations. The next item was the appointment of the chairs and co-chairs. So Ken Mervis was voted as chair for a 1-year term, and similarly Molly Varner as vice chair. The council then established the regular meeting schedule. So this helps with the issue of public notice. Once you have a regularly scheduled time, you're all set as far as meetings law. So that is the 3rd Wednesday of every month from 10 to 11:30 a.m. There's some brief updates, and that was it.
Okay.
I'd move approval.
I'll second.
Before we approve it, it looks like the minutes actually say that we're meeting on the 3rd Monday, as opposed to the 3rd Wednesday. So I think that just needs to be corrected.
Really? Oh, I said in the text, I said I recommended the 3rd Monday, but it's actually we voted the Wednesday. Yeah, but I must have typed that in.
Oh, I see that.
So the motion,
Sorry,
the motion was correct, but I misstated that. Thank you, though.
Okay,
So,
great. So we're
Dean was the motion, and who was the second?
Andrea.
Andrea was the second.
Thank you, and we'll make that correction.
And I apologize, I got a little ahead of myself. We wanted to start to see if there were any changes to the agenda or public comment on the items not on the agenda for today. Okay, looks like there are no recommended changes, so we will forge ahead. Okay, Dan, the first review of draft council policies and procedures.
Okay. Let's share my screen there. Everybody see that all right? All right. So this is a first draft, so we don't need to get into too much wordsmithing. Part of the reason it's a first draft is that Some of these topics are still in limbo by DEC. So DEC is working on the guidance document. So the act was passed, Act 76 was passed, the Clean Water Service Provider rule was passed, and now the state is working on the guidance document, which has lots of details. So there's no reason we don't want to vote on this today because something might change, but this captures the current thinking that DEC is talking about. And I ran this by Chris Rotler from DEC. He's the main person working on this. And here we go. So I will walk through some of these. They're pretty self-explanatory. The language here at the purpose in the top, I will add some fluff to that, more descriptive text in keeping with some excerpts from Act 76 as well as the rule. These definitions are right in the rule. This describes the purpose of the council. There's two issues. One is water quality impairments. The two primary roles are identifying and prioritizing water quality impairments, and then the subsequent projects to achieve that. Projects not required by regulation. So there's that identification and prioritization process. And then you're going to consider ranking, and you're going to tweak the co-benefit score. There'll be a standardized value of some sort for the actual phosphorus reduction benefit. There'll be some sort of scoring mechanism for a project. I don't know if it's going to be per dollar or pound of phosphorus per acre, or dollar spent for pound of phosphorus removed. And then the BWIC, you guys, the council, you vote to advance a clean water project, and you essentially sort of tell CCRPC as the clean water service provider to support these following projects. And then we primarily will be issuing sub-grants to project managers, project implementors to make these projects happen. So that's that. The membership part, you already know. The language here about how you're appointed comes straight out of the Act 76 itself. So again, most of the time it's pretty much you guys getting together and deciding amongst yourselves who should represent the constituencies. And one thing I want to point out on this is that, you know, the members, and you guys know this, but I like to emphasize this, you know, you're representing a category of users. So it's good to think in those broad terms of the constituency, not necessarily your individual organization. The alternate language will be similar, but that's being worked on right now in the guidance document around the current thinking seems to be that there is a paired alternate, which is fine. But then in some cases we have a situation where we've only got 3 NRCDs. And so, you know, it's nice to have the floating NRCD who can fill in for NRCD, or the municipalities. Those are the three warm bodies that volunteer, numerous municipalities in the basin. So that's why Tom is the floating alternate, you know, when one of those is absent. The terms, that's pretty much set. There's an initial one here that's slightly longer than 2 years because they recognize the appointments were going to be made in the spring. But generally speaking, they'll run out on a fiscal year basis after that. You've taken care of the chair and the vice chair. Attendance, this is something that's, again, right out of the rule about at least attending at least 1/2 or more of the meetings. This language here, again, out of the rule and the guidance. Sort of obvious stuff, but it helps to just to put that down there. You act in good faith. The conflict of interest language is probably still going to be tweaked, but that's something there will be some language in there about conflict of interest. And then just for, again, formality's sake, signing, the state wants members to sign these kinds of documents. And I think part of the reason, again, that this seems what's the word, very legalistic, is that, you know, the state is essentially passing authority to these clean water service providers and the Basin Water Quality Council to handle lots of state money. So I think that's why some of these things are a little more strict than usual committees you may be involved with. Open meeting law, et cetera. Right now, we're just doing a virtual format here. I did put in some language saying we may want to rotate locations, physical building locations on time, as long as there's adequate notice. Once we do resume having in-person meetings, or I think for the time being, I think we'll virtual and then probably hybrid for quite some time. It helps with attendance. It makes things easy for people. Yep. And minutes, again, it's just straight out of open meeting law stuff. Yeah, and that's it. There's just a placeholder for adoption. Oh, so I'll stop talking there and see if anybody has any questions. Okay, I'll turn it back to you, Madam. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I should ask the chair if I should be raising my hand virtually before I speak, but if it's okay. A couple of thoughts, Dan. Some of this is inside baseball, but we've heard a little bit from DEC about this idea of staggering seats in this initial period so that not everyone goes away at once or there's a big turnover. So do you want to address that? And then I guess I can follow with my second question or comment.
Yeah, that's a good point. So I don't know what to do about it right now. But yeah, I'm agreeing with staggering seats. That makes a lot of sense. But
well, maybe just make sure that everybody knows that it's something that DEC is talking about with QUISPs, that they might see the books do.
Yeah, good point. Thanks for bringing that up.
My other comment has to do with the bottom of the first page. It's more stylistic. You've got in one of the bullets, based upon project priorities identified under section 39-403D. I think I would just prefer that the bylaws not make a reference to the rule and force someone to go look up the rule. So either a footnote or worded in a way that makes the reference to the specific section unnecessary, or at least in the text. So maybe say something like based on project priorities, and then have a footnote, and then have the footnote say that it's done according to 39-403. But when I see things like this, it just makes me a little frustrated because I need to go look at the rule if it's being mentioned, and it also doesn't take into account the fact that sometimes rules get renumbered and then it could be an obsolete reference, blah, blah, blah.
Okay. So do you want me to excerpt all of 39-403D in a footnote?
I wouldn't mind if it said based upon project priorities identified by the book shall consider preliminary, blah, 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 something
Gotcha.
like that. I
Okay.
don't know that it needs to be so specific.
Right. Okay. Gotcha. All right. That's good. Thanks.
It might be helpful to, in us reviewing this, is to just include that section as a footnote for to make it easy for everybody to read it right away. And if we're going to look at this again at the next meeting and vote on it. I mean, I guess we all do have copies of that, but
Yeah.
might just make it easier.
Yeah, I'll have to see how many times I'm referencing different sections of the rule. Then if it's just one or two, then it's probably pretty easy to include in the footnote. If it gets egregious, if it gets numerous references, then we'll just have to say like, see most recent version of rule posted on the website, that kind of thing.
If you're gonna say most recent, I think you should give a date.
Yeah,
Let's make it specific because it does get pretty confusing as to what documents we're looking at.
yep. Thank you. So the question there, Brown, if you go to, Stacy, Charlie, if you go to our, the website, and can put it in here again, it's just to walk people. Actually, here, let me do this. Let me stop share there. Let me, bring up our website. All right, I'm gonna share screen here just to show everybody how to get where they need to go. As you, since you have not, okay.
Dan, this is
yeah.
Stacy. I'm not sure that I was looking for the link to the document that you're working on. I was wondering if for the reference of the rule, the 39 blah blah, that you could include the link to that document in the document that you were looking at. So that
Gotcha.
if someone needed or wanted to go read it, they could go back and just click the link and it would take them to the appropriate section of the rule or to the rule itself for their own browsing enjoyment.
Good point. Embed the links, yeah. Gotcha.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay.
So thank you.
Yeah, okay. And just for a refresher, if you go to our website, you should be seeing our website screen. Everybody see that? Yeah, and then you go here to Clean Water Service Provider, and you start to see, the links, the rules, Act 176, the Basin, the Water Quality Council projects, et cetera. And when you get to the Water Council here, and if you go through our first meeting agenda, there's Act 76 and there's the rule, et cetera. So
A lot of clicking we got to do.
yeah, gotcha. And I'm just showing people where the website is. So,
Yeah, no, that's good.
well, it has a lot of stuff because our contract with the state says we have to have all this information on our website, which makes sense.
Yeah.
Anyway. So, any more questions on the policies? And like I said, they're still moving right now. So,
Dan, it's going to be, I'm just going to let you know, I will send you some suggested changes to that and you can circulate them to the group however you wish, but I think it can be organized a little bit differently and perhaps more clearly.
okay. Well, I borrowed it from Bonnie, who got it from you guys in Northwest years ago. So, it's all RPC sharing stuff. So, all right. That's it, Madam Chair, for that item. So.
Okay, thanks, Dan. Okay, next up on the agenda is a brief update on pending RFQ for subcontractors and pending RFQ for subgrantees. So I will hand it back to you, Dan.
Yeah, so the way things are moving, and Dean Pierce can chime in here for his two basins that he's administering as a quest. So all the clean water service providers have been meeting, and we've been working with the state on this. And we're moving in the overall procurement guidance is that there can be, everything must be competitively procured except sub-grants to the project implementers, managers, facilitators, the people who make it happen and oversee a project, which are often the NRCDs, the watershed groups, a municipality, a land trust, and and perhaps some other citizens groups or things like that. So that being the case, every other service, however, has to be competitively procured. So what we're planning to do, all the RPCs and plus Vermont Housing and Conservation Board for Lake for Magog will issue an RFQ for engineers, mostly targeted at engineers, but hypothetically it could be other people who may not be specifically engineers. And those will be subcontractors. And the guidance on that will say basically you apply, you give your qualifications, and if you meet a minimum score, your engineering firm would be pre-qualified to provide services to the QUISP, be a subcontractor to a clean water service provider or one of its sub-grantees. So it's going to establish a pool of mostly engineering firms for 5 different phases, which is basically identification, development, preliminary design, 100% design, construction and implementation, and then operation, maintenance, inspection, verification. I think that's 5. But those are the phases of a project. And then once that pool is established, when a sub-grantee gets an award based upon the Basin Water Quality Council saying, yep, Friends of Northern Lake Champlain looks like a good project. Here is a sub-grant. In this case, the example, the Friends of Northern Lake Champlain would then only need to competitively procure bids from at least 3 of our pre-qualified firms in the basin. So it should make things easier. We won't have to do big notices. They can just send, here's the scope of work to an engineer. So that's it. So the first one will be an RFQ for subcontractors. The next one, which will follow shortly, will be a request for qualification for sub-grantees. And it's going to have a similar skill sets. We're still, as a QUISP, looking for organizations that have skills in all the phases. That'll essentially set up, again, many of you here on this call right now, as sub-grantees to the CCRPC as the Basin 5 Clean Water Service Provider. And that'll set up the mechanism so that when July 1st, we have a $500,000 from DEC, and the BWIC says we want to support these 3, 4, 5, 6 projects, then we can make an award to you, the organizations and other organizations who come up with a project. That's essentially how it'll work. So right now, those RFQs will probably go out here, I would say maybe 4 weeks from now, 5 weeks from now, something like that. So that's kind of where we are at that. Related to that, I will share a markup of our procurement policy at CCRPC. We're not to share really the RFQ development, but we can show you what we're looking for in terms of our procurement policy at CCRPC, which we're tweaking slightly just to capture this issue. So
What happens if you ask for bids, but you only get one?
I suppose we'd reissue it or something, but I don't see the engineers, I don't think we'll have a problem with all the usual suspect firms applying. And we're going to standardize the form across regions, so it should make it pretty easy. So I guess if we only got one bid, I don't know what we'd do. I guess you'd all have to work with one engineer. So do you foresee that happening?
Well, yeah, I do. In the times that we've had, that LCA has had to be bidding projects, we have only gotten one bid.
Is this for engineers?
Yeah.
Or for construction? For engineers, okay.
Engineers, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully, all the engineering firms know that this is going to be a lot of money flowing through. It's just an RFQ process. It's not a bid process at this standpoint. We'll go.
No,
there.
I mean, I understand they get the RFQ process, but when you get to actually, yeah.
Yeah,
So
I mean,
I
some
think
of
we
them
just-
might be too busy, and
Yeah.
then if they submit a engineering design bid that is way out of whack with the standardized value established by DEC, then your project might die.
Mhm.
I mean, I don't really know what to say. It's kind
Okay.
of that hypothetically could happen, I guess. But hopefully.
I guess maybe we'd like to get some guidance on that, because we'll spend an awful lot of time, putting together the bids or putting together the documents to bid a project. And
Yeah.
so if somebody can, as long as we publish it and ask for bids,
Yeah.
Okay.
Lauren, you asked a very good question. I think sometime May or June, maybe May, we start doing a call for proposals. And then hypothetically, probably not the May meeting, but the June 15th meeting would be a big one of setting projects. I think initially there's an assumption that once we're 1 or 2 years in, 1 year into QUISP operations, that ideally there's package of proposals all being considered at the same time, like a big work program. But I think initially it's going to be kind of whatever comes over the transom and we go from there. So I wish I could be, but yeah, we don't have authority to start issuing any money until July 1st as a QUISP. So Charlie and Dean, you got anything to add on this or how to answer, Lauren's question?
I guess I would just say that I don't, the first year was probably going to be improvised and will be different from how it's done in future years. The timing that you mentioned, if we are going to get money out the door for, I'll call it a new project, anywhere close to July 1, yes, we're going to have to start the process in May or June, not June, but I'm frankly not sure that we are going to be able to get, or QUISP will be able to get the money out that quickly. And I'm not sure that the councils won't have other meaningful things to do. But anyway, my initial point is probably the main one.
Thanks. Kate, with regards to your question, the intent is that we as a clean water service provider give the watershed group or whoever all the funds they need to pay the engineers and to pay the construction and all that. That's the intent, and we want to do that. Ideally as much as possible. So that's the plan. There seems to be indications from DEC, because when we originally responded to this request for information when we originally put in our bid to be the clean water service provider, we wanted the ability to just have a bunch of engineers in the stable and then just assign them task orders. As long as we're spreading the work around, and you as an organization, Andrea or Kate or whoever, Emily, you were comfortable with the engineer we were assigning the work to. That's the original vision I have, which is a lot of how RPC's operated. We do it with brownfields money, we do it with transportation contracts all the time. But the state was pretty strict, like, no. There must be a procurement for everything except the sub-grantee project manager. However, the state does seem to think that as long as when the project gets started, maybe at the design level or even at the development level, you competitively procure that engineer at the start, you can carry that engineering firm with you as you go. So hopefully you wouldn't need to do it at every 30%, 100%. So that's seems to be what DEC is saying. So initially, yeah, for the start of these projects, and I would begin to think of it, and we'll get into that here with our later agenda item, once we get our procurement done of the engineers, you'll know the stable, and it should be all the usual suspects for this RFQ. So that's what we're envisioning. And then you as an organization come to the BWIC, the council, with the package and say, okay, we've got this, we competitively procured this engineer. They said it's $10,000 for the design. Based upon the standardized value, we think construction costs are going to be this, and you come with a project. But it's going to have to be blessed by DEC before the BWIC votes on it for its phosphorus benefit removal calculation, so, which is still a moving target, right?
Dan, I don't know if something like this, it doesn't sound like it's ready to be built out, but I think as a potential subgrantee, it would be helpful to sort of have not necessarily a timeline, but like a step-by-step process of how, if we have a project, of how it works. Like if we go to the WIC first, if we submit that to DEC, then, 5 weeks later, we're assigned an engineer, sort of just like a step-by-step process of how we can expect these projects to go, since this, for many of us, will be the first time. It might just be helpful so we can sort of set our expectations and our workloads, and timing around that.
Yeah. We talked about this yesterday amongst all the Clean Water Service providers, or 2 days ago, I should say. And Dean Pierce and some of the other QUIS folks are going to try to nail that down with DEC. There's an assumption that there's going to be some sort of calculator within the DEC database where you could plug in the values and then it would come up with a standardized cost or an estimated cost for that project. Ideally, you guys should be able to work with DEC, refine it and accept it. But yeah, that's a very good question. We're not sure like how that works. So I'm sorry, I wish provide more. Dean or Charlie, you want to add anything since you're familiar with this?
Well, yeah, as Dan mentioned, there are some of the quizzes that are, we're basically trying to create maps or graphics that lay out the process. And 3 of us are developing them on our own, and then we're sharing them just to get an idea of just how differently or the same we view the process, because we suspect that it will be a little bit different. And then we're just going to try to, smooth out rough edges. I have a graphic I'm looking at on my other screen here, and if I shared it, you might go, oh, whoa, that's crazy. But we're trying to tease out the steps. The thing I would say is that, it's critically important that the partners understand that there's an application process, but before we can give them the application process, we have to know what it is. So the quiz have to figure out what's going to be part of an application process so that the ball can be rolling and the projects can then, the way I look at it is you will apply and then there will be some screening that has to determine the basic viability of the project. But if it passes the screening, it goes into a list. That's going to be a QUISP responsibility. The QUISP will be giving this list with some prioritization in it to the BWICs, and the BWICs will be doing the heavy lifting in terms of prioritization that will ultimately determine what gets funding. But oh, by the way, remember, the BWICs won't be able to prioritize until they figure out what kind of prioritization process they're going to use. Or are they just going to accept the one that the QUISPs use? However complicated or simple the BWICs need to make it. But I guess I can just say that there are 3 of us at least that are working on this and trying to come up with something that will be relatively clear. There are some DEC graphics that are out there that show some of these steps, and they're pretty complicated. I'm hoping that we can do something that's a little simpler and people will be able to wrap their heads around. I'll shut up now.
Thanks, Dean. Yeah, the whole idea of, the key thing is that there's 2 steps. One is that the quiz, gets a set of projects, but then there is this co-benefit score that we're supposed to do. We as a quiz staff do it, and then you guys proofread it and tweak the co-benefit score. Initially, hopefully this is not much of a concern initially, because we're all starting with a full pot of money and we just want to be rushing to get some projects out the door. That scoring mechanism will become more important, next year when funds are, maybe everybody's ramped up and we have $700,000 in requests, but we've only got $500,000 to give out. So All right, so stay tuned on this. The RFQ for engineers you may see that come out of I'm hopeful to issue it relatively soon, at least for Basin 5, so. And then the sub-grantee one will follow shortly after, which would be the main one that all of you organizations as well as municipalities. And again, it's just a qualification process to show demonstrate your skill set in the various project phase, your ability to manage a project, receive funds, that kind of stuff. So that's it, Madam Chair, for that one.
All right, so moving on to brief updates and presentations by NRCDs, watershed groups, and land conservation organizations on past projects and potential projects for summer and fall. I encourage anyone that wants to offer an update to just raise their hand, or you can drop your name into the chat and we'll make sure that we get to everyone who has something to share. But if someone's, oh, Roger, I see you raising your hand.
I am. You can finish and then I'm just volunteering to say something.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, please just, raise your hand if you'd like to say something. And we'll go from there. We'll make sure everyone gets called on. And Roger, yeah, please.
All right, thanks. I sent a presentation to Dan. If you'd share it, Dan, appreciate it. I just wanted to give a few words on Lake Iroquois and just to introduce you to Lake Iroquois. It's located in Williston, Hinesburg, Richmond, and St. George. There are not a lot of lakes in Vermont that span multiple towns, but it's a challenge at times. About 132 acres, has a public beach and fishing access at the north end and a dam at the south end. The water runs north to south and dumps off into a river through the dam. Its steepest point is 32 feet, which is roughly in the middle of the lake. Most of the lake is 15 feet or less. In fact, the north end is even shallower than that. The lake was smaller than that. It was a pond at one point. Hinesburg Pond was the name of it. And then they put the dam in and flooded it. And so it goes further up north, pretty shallow, but it gave more frontage for more camps. It has a hilly terrain on two sides, east and west, which is ideal for getting runoff. The major recent projects that we've done are a riparian buffer at the fishing access, and I'll have a picture of that later. A major redesign of the beach area. It used to be the cars would park and then rainwater would cause the parking area to flush into the beach itself. So you get all the oil or whatever that comes off the cars into the beach area, and then the sand from the beach would run into the lake. So it was really a poor runoff situation. So we had a major project in conjunction with the Lake Iroquois Recreation District to taper the parking area so the water runs in the opposite direction, put in a rain garden and revise the parking situation. So it works much better and there's much less flowing into the lake as a result, and less sand they have to purchase for the beach itself. We did construction and plantings to divert runoff on one of the major roads that comes down the lake called Pine Shore Drive. And I'll show you some pictures on that in a second. And we also did similar work on Shadow Lane. Shadow Lane is a road that goes from Pond Road straight down the lake, and it is truly a straight shot that goes directly from Pond Road down to the lake. And if there was ice on it and you were driving down the road, you'd be in the lake. So they do a good job of maintaining that, but it also had the potential of flushing all kinds of stuff off the road into the lake. But they've done a lot of work to divert the water on that as well. We have 6 properties that have received the Lakewise Award, which identifies property owners that are really best of breed for doing things on their property to minimize contamination in the lake. We have several others that have received certificates, which just shows that they're going in the right direction to earn the Lakewise Award, and they're working toward the lake is working toward a gold award, which recognizes any lake that has 15, it should say 15%, not 15. Well, yeah, it's 15 properties on our lake of the 92 that we have, but the requirement for gold on any lake is 15% of the properties. And the requirements are listed here for getting that award. Do you have native vegetation on the shoreland? What do you have for recreation area? And do you minimize your paths to get down to the lake? It's okay to have them, but it shouldn't be wide open green area. And to minimize the non-pervious area for driveways. And probably the biggest one is that you have a functioning septic system. And that's not easy to fix. We had to fix ours. And it was at the time, this was done maybe 6-7 years ago, it was $25,000 just to have a septic system at camp that works really well. But it's good for the lake. Currently, we do weekly water sampling, and we send that through to a lab for testing. That's done through DEC to monitor phosphorus and clarity levels. We also last year got a permit from DEC to put Procellacor in the lake to attack our milfoil. And you can only do 40% of your lake per year, but that 40%, the Procellacor did a great job there, but it tends to float down the lake. So I think it actually helped us in more than 40 acres or 40%, but it really worked well. We have much less milfoil as a result. So we strongly encourage lakes to use that if they have a milfoil problem.
Is that a chemical? What is it?
Yeah, it's an herbicide. Yes.
Okay.
Yep. So DEC would have more information on that. It has been approved federally, and it's been used in several lakes across the country. I think there's been maybe 8 or 10 in Vermont that have used it so far. 50 some odd in New Hampshire. They're really going very well with that one. On this page, it just shows some examples of the work that was done on Pine Shore Drive. The first 2 pictures are before pictures. It just shows the runoff that was going through the from Pond Road down to the lake. Then the next 2 pictures are the exact same locations a year later after we've done the work. So you can see there's a lot of greenery, a lot of growth, and therefore diverting of the water. So it's really helped the lake. And the other one is a project that we did a few years ago. It's the first one in Vermont. This is to put a riparian buffer at the fishing access. Prior to putting that in, it was just mowed green grass, so the water would just run right in the lake. But the plantings have turned out to have lots of shrubbery, trees, and unmowed grass, so the water is really not running at all. So it's really worked well. And that's been a model for other lakes to look at and to implement the same solution at their lake. So as I mentioned, we're going to continue with Procellacor this year and the water sampling as well. And that'll define what we do for our next projects. Thanks.
Okay, and just Roger, as a follow-up, I know you're the association, but I do know that the Lake Iroquois Recreation District, has done 100% design on the north side for BB Lane for a lot of improvements there, and it's an expensive project. They've applied for some design implementation block grants and have not got funded, and there was some timeline things on the wetland delineation, things like that, but hopefully that project will be submitting for a construction on that. A lot of improvements for the segments there.
Yeah, let me give you a quick update on that. The design was done a couple of years ago, so we know the work to do. And we actually got an estimate from a construction organization to do that work. Senator Sanders has put out a request for applications to get a grant from his office. So what we just did, in fact, I submitted about an hour before this meeting, an application that addresses that very road and the runoff from that road. It's only going to cost about $370,000 to fix it. We need to crown the road and resurface it. and divert the water from that. But anyhow, that application is in. We'll see where we go.
All right, good news. All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Any questions for Roger, or does someone else want to volunteer?
I did receive, I'll call on people because I did receive some things. Kate, do you want to share the Lewis Creek Association or story map page or whatever that was?
Yeah, if one of you guys is able to share, I'm on a really poor connection right now, so I don't dare try to share my screen or turn on my video because I think everything will crash on me.
Gotcha. Give me a sec here. Where are you? Okay. Okay. Here we go. I will share my screen. All right. Everybody see that ahead of the storm story map? Okay, I'm assuming you can see it. Nobody's saying anything.
Yes.
So, Kate, go ahead and talk. I'll just sort of, tell me where to go, or you can just talk about it. Or
Okay. Andrea, do you want to take this or do you want me to?
Go ahead.
Okay. So we have a program called Ahead of the Storm, which is really sort of a demonstration project for folks who are interested in learning a little more about, ways to improve stormwater management and hopefully do them in sort of a optimal way, not just like a best management practices, but really like going above and beyond to deal with climate change, larger rainfall events, all those types of things. So we have about 16 sites throughout mostly the La Platte and direct drainage watersheds. The story map that Dan's showing on the screen really is just a summary of those sites. Some of them are now constructed, like this one, this Brook Lane site that you're looking at, but there are several, in basic, like concept design phase that we're progressing through to final engineering and then on to implementation. We generally do sort of are working on maybe 2 or 3 of these each year. This year we're excited. We have a wetland restoration project going on behind the United Church of Heinsberg, and that's one that we'll be asking for implementation funding for from this next round of block grant funding. And it's a variety of projects, everything from roadside swales to bioretention areas. We have a nice rain garden at the Shelburne Community School. Most of them are in public areas where folks can see them, and there's a variety of information available on our website where people can go in and like learn more about what was done and how much it cost, and get some more details about what is actually going on there. So some of them are more natural. We do have several rain gardens, but we also have a floodplain restoration project in Heinsberg at the town garage area. And like I mentioned, this wetland restoration project that will be hopefully implemented very soon behind the United Church of Heinsberg. Andrea, what did I miss?
Nothing. I think the process follows the, kind of concept design. We try to identify places where we know there's been high phosphorus loads or known erosion areas, and work with both private landowners and municipalities or the schools. So, we, in the La Platte watershed, we have both kind of urban, highly built up areas with a lot of impervious surfaces, suburban areas, and rural farmland. So the idea of Ahead of the Storm is to go through a step-by-step process and identify how much water, what the catchment area is. So as opposed to just doing a site-specific project that's identifying what's the water within your kind of suburban lot. This tries to find places where we can actually get a larger catchment area where we're treating water. So sometimes it's happening on private land, but they're actually collecting water from a municipal road or a private road. So I think that's the distinction between kind of site-specific work and work that's designed to try and address larger catchment areas within a watershed. And the optimal conservation project is really trying to address the implications of climate change and more intense and more frequent storms.
Okay, I did get an email from Kent here with a nice little video, a little show and tell, so give me a second on that.
Yeah, I took the easy way out. I got a pretty full plate, so I found a presentation that I think it was the Ag Agency and ANR did together. It's a video about a project that we did on some farmland. Agriculture is a huge land use in our area that we're located in. So I just thought that I would provide that as an example of work that Friends does.
Okay, here we go. A little ad here first. How do I shut my- Sorry. All right. I will put a link there in the chat to that. And we have 2 stars of the silver screen here for this, both Kent and Stacy. So if anybody has questions, go ahead and fire off to Kent or Stacy.
Yeah, I don't have anything to add. It looks like I have the same shirt on I had when we did that 3 years ago. But I did change my shirt in between time, I'll assure you. Just as I was, as this started, you probably saw our AmeriCorps member leaving behind me. She's on her way up there now to collect water samples. We've been sampling it, and we are noticing a difference between the inlet and the outlet. That the phosphorus is being retained, and just going up there and looking, it's filling in the sediment, and it's made a huge impact on that farm field. So it's an innovative practice. We're looking for other areas to use it, and we've got a place in the direct lake basin that we will be talking to you about in the future for this sort of project.
And what are some of the plans for this summer?
For this summer, we've got 3 projects ready to be applied for in the town of Georgia, in the town of Swanton and Highgate Springs. We've done shoreline assessment projects that will come up with 30% design on these 2 projects, and we've actually found 15 projects that could be put into the clean water portals. So I guess that's where we're focusing right now, are these shoreline assessments.
So you anticipate applying for funds perhaps for final design on these?
Yes, yeah. We'll have 5 of them by the end of the summer. Yes, so we've got 3 in the portal right now, and we've got 2 more that will be with the direction of the tactical basin planner. I mean, we're really getting really good communication there, and really good guidance on getting these projects into the portals. So I'm hoping this will really come together quickly.
All right. Anybody else want to go? Before I have the chair calling.
Yeah, Dan, I'm happy to go.
Yeah, go, Remy.
I got my video off. The Zoom keeps letting me know I've got low system resources. So I'll see if I can share my screen.
Looks good. Go to full screen. Yeah, there you go.
Great. So I got a little bit of a rudimentary slideshow here that I slapped together before the meeting, but it outlines some of the projects that we have ongoing, some that are completed and some that we'll be looking to in the future. One of the large projects that we've got going on right now is the removal of Hands Mill Dam in Washington, Vermont. This project has multiple co-benefits. It is very old, it's in deteriorating condition. So it poses a significant safety hazard to residents that live downstream. The removal of the dam will also restore 14.7 miles of prime brook trout habitat in the Jail Branch, as well as removing over 14,000 cubic yards of impounded sediment, which poses an extra threat, especially since there's threat of the dam potentially breaking in large storm events. All of that sediment is at risk of moving downstream in such an event. So this is one of our large projects that we have been working on for a number of years. And we are also focused on removing other dams and culverts in the headwaters of the Winooski and elsewhere in the Winooski district. But this is sort of the crowning jewel of those efforts at the moment. These are two pictures from a recently completed stream bank restoration project and park redesign in Middlesex. So the park needed to be redesigned. It was suffering from extreme soil compaction. The access road went parallel to Martins Brook and very close to the stream edge. So paired with vehicles and excessive recreational access, you can see the impaired stream banks there. So we redesigned the park, moved the access road further away, moved a lot of the picnic shelter and other features further away from the stream bank to reduce compaction of the soil. We installed hardened paths and granite steps, as you can see off to the right, not only to stabilize those banks, but also provide recreational access. It is a very important recreational resource for the residents of Middlesex. So we wanted to allow them to continue to access the stream bed, but do so in a way that was going to have a lot less impact on the land. So we installed those, as well as willow fascines, willow stakes, and planted over 350 trees on site to widen the stream buffer and hold the soil in place a bit better. We're also working with Lake Iroquois Association and Lewis Creek Association to put together a watershed action plan for Lake Iroquois. And so this will result in a number of different projects within that watershed. So in a sense, this will be a great way of conducting a lot of project development, which will then identify and prioritize projects within that watershed for the partners to work on completing, with obviously a focus on water quality, wildlife habitat, and climate change resilience. So that is going to be really getting off the ground this summer, and then move through next field season. So we're really excited about this project moving forward. Stormwater retention project in East Montpelier at Morris Farm. That is a popular recreation or tourist destination. They have a maple sugaring farm, so it does get a lot of traffic. There's some issues with the parking lot and impervious surfaces, along with a long stretch of county road. So the two of those kind of combined in this area create pretty significant stormwater issues. So we've worked with Watershed Consulting Associates to get to 100% design. So this is one project that we will be looking to move into implementation in the next year or two. Other projects, we've completed smaller projects like stormwater features at the Romney Memorial School. We are potentially looking at another site at Underhill Central School for stormwater storage to help with stormwater issues associated with impervious surface in the parking lot there. And then the district also runs a number of other kind of smaller projects that help with water quality and project identification. One of those is Trees for Streams. So we identify riparian areas that would benefit from wider buffers, riparian planting, stream bank stabilization, and plant trees in those areas. We also run our Storm Smart program, which I think is a little similar to the Lewis Creeks Association's Ahead of the Storm, which Andrea was mentioning earlier. So we offer free stormwater property assessments to homeowners throughout the district. And this helps to kind of create a smaller list of small non-regulatory projects that can range, from installing a rain barrel all the way up to, regrading of a road or reducing, mowed area and impervious surface on the property. So that helps to kind of create a running list of non-regulatory projects. We also coordinate the Rethink Runoff Stream team, which similarly helps to implement small non-regulatory projects. For example, rain garden installations at municipal buildings, rain barrel workshops, and we also conduct water quality testing. The district also is engaged in a number of different agricultural water quality projects. Nothing of note right now to bring up. We're focused mainly on kind of building our education and outreach components to producers in the district at this point, but we will be looking to move forward with more project identification, design, and implementation of agricultural projects. So that's what I got. Anyone have any questions?
Good, thanks.
Thank you.
Lauren, I see that you came back on video. Does that mean you're volunteering to go next?
Yeah, I'll go next, and I apologize. I have god awful tonsillitis, so I might not talk a ton, but I'll show some pretty pictures. Kind of similar to, or I guess the Franklin County District works mostly in the Missisquoi Bay and Lamoille watersheds. We're trying to get more and more involved in Basin 5. So these are all not in Basin 5, but that's okay. This is actually just from the other day. Where's the photo I wanted to start with? That's the photo I wanted to start with. That's the Rock River. And we went in and we installed willow fascines along a lower floodplain and had a great, beautiful day. This was Friday last week. It was so nice out. And if you're not familiar with what willow fascines are, that's what they look like, and you kind of tuck them back in. Arguably, there should be some more willows in that trench, but we worked with what we had. And the goal is to help stabilize that stream bank. We also went up into the agricultural fields, the pasture lands, and we made some little willow fences to try to capture some of the sediment and the material that was moving down off the hills to reduce phosphorus loading to the river. We also got to see an otter in the Rock River, which I think is pretty rare. And then some other work that we're doing. We went out on Monday. It's been a busy field season already, and did some survey work to try to remove this former bridge. So the bridge is still there and creating a pinch point on the dead creek. And so we're working on a 30% design to remove that bridge and the access road. And both of those designs we just did in-house at the district. So that's been pretty fun to be able to design our own projects. And I'm curious to see how that'll turn out in the QuISP work too, if I need to apply as a sub-grantee and a subcontractor. And then I think based on Zoom, I think we can stop sharing that screen so I can share a different screen. Yep. And then a couple of years back, before my time here, they did a large, we'll call it a bank failure. The channel had just completely disintegrated, and so This is on a farm up by the Canadian border. And they came in with an engineer and a contractor and redid that slope to stabilize it. That's Brody in the picture, if you were curious. And if you know anything about the Franklin County District, we talk a lot about dam removals. So love to keep removing dams. This is the Johnson's Mill Dam. It was removed last August in Bakersfield. And we would love to remove some of the dams in, or I guess I assume they're in Basin 5. That maybe could use some removal to increase aquatic organism passage. We've definitely got the skill set, and we're doing at least 3-year monitoring at this dam site to be able to show the water quality improvements and the changes in the channel over time. They went out and flew LiDAR the other day, and it was really neat. And I actually got willow staked yesterday in the snow. I went out with a Red Start and they staked that yesterday. I was impressed by their resilience. And yeah, I think in general, you know, Franklin County is such an ag heavy location that we haven't necessarily done. We've spent a lot of the time in the past 5 years working with farmers on kind of field practices, and we're excited to do more project management for water quality projects like this, and to keep expanding our collective area of expertise and see where we can help.
Thanks, Lauren.
Oh, and if anyone wants to come plant trees with me on Friday, I will take your hands and backs. We're doing a tree planting in Fairfield. If anyone's interested, I'll post the information. We're looking for all the volunteers we can find.
Okay, and Remy and Lauren, can you send me like a PDF of the slides and the PDF of yours, Remy, too? Or you can send me whatever you got. I can turn it into a PDF.
Yeah, no problem, Dan.
We'll post them on the website. Thanks.
So Lauren, what was the phrase that you used to describe the treatment? I think you said willow couchine.
Fascine, Fascine.
Okay, and
It's like
it's a bundle of willow.
It's a bundle of willow that you install in a trench.
okay,
And the theory is each of the bud shoots on that willow will send out vertical stalks.
okay. It's
And so it'll create like a wall.
Like burying wattles, basically.
Yeah. You do, after we buried everything on Friday, I maybe went back on Monday and unburied them a little bit because they should have had a bit more solar contact. So don't bury them all the way. You're supposed to leave at least 20% of them in solar contact, which it's exhausting to bury a fascine and then go back and unbury it. I don't recommend it, so just don't bury it fully the first time.
Also the origin of the word fascist, too. Look it up. It's fascinating. Well, there's some Roman iconography with a bundle of sticks with it. Anyway, it's an old phrase, goes back way back. So, all right, Molly, who you want to call on next?
Emily, do you have an update you want to share?
So no, Molly, I'm going to leave the only active project that we have going to you because it's a partnership project and you are taking the lead on it. I can quickly share my screen. So South Hero Land Trust primarily does water quality through land conservation projects. And we've conserved over 1,800 acres of land in South Hero. And this is just our website. You can zoom in and look at the various parcels. But it's a pretty significant portion of the land mass of South Hero. And it's a number of projects, primarily farmland projects, but also natural areas. And one of our major water quality projects was the Round Pond Natural Area in 2001, which is 150 acres of land surrounding the Round Pond wetland. and included 2,000 acres or 2,000 feet of Lake Champlain shoreline that we eventually donated to the state as a state park. And yeah, we work with farmers on projects that they're interested in. They often have to do with rotational grazing practices and riparian buffers. A lot of that work, though, really just has to do with supporting applications for grant funding and helping get farmers connected with folks who can do the work and do the design. And then protecting properties that are surrounding wetlands or our hills over shorelines and things like that. We don't do a lot of on the ground projects ourselves, although we do have a tree planting happening on Vermont's Arbor Day this year, thanks to our AmeriCorps service member. And we do have a great project happening with Molly that I'll let her talk about. And I have a feeling we'll be doing more of these projects in the future. That's it.
Thanks, Emily. And I'll, the project that she's referring to, which Remy is developing a similar one, is a lake and watershed action plan. Our focus is going to be on the Keeler Bay in the northeast arm of South Hero. So we're hoping to identify roughly 20 to 30 projects within that area that will be reduce phosphorus and sediment loading into the bay. There's been an upward trend of phosphorus concentrations in that bay. It's a very important piece of water as far as recreation, drinking water, a lot of lakeshore properties. So there's a ton of community interest and enthusiasm around bringing some action to that area. So we're really hoping that to find a lot of great projects, bring a number of them to roughly 30% design. And then sort of once this project concludes in early summer of next year, we'll have what we hope will be a long list of projects to apply for future funding for to actually implement water quality restoration projects. We're working with the South Hero Land Trust and DEC to develop this. We're going to be planning hopefully a lot of great community sort of education and outreach events this summer to build some awareness of this project and sort of teach people, a few great things along the way about what they can do on their own properties to improve water quality. So I will definitely be sort of touting more information on that as things get developed. We have a great group of stakeholders and we're sort of in the beginning phases of planning. So it's really exciting for Grand Isle. We're really trying to build our arsenal of just projects to develop. We're sort of breaking into the agriculture water quality sector. And similar to what Remy said, we've been really focusing our efforts on education and outreach at this point. But again, looking to build those relations so we do have projects to implement in the future. And yeah, I'll leave it there because I know we only have 10 minutes left and we still have a few agenda items to cover. But is there anyone else that wanted to share that didn't get a chance to? Okay, awesome. Well, thank you, everyone. And I will move on to the next agenda item, which is the Clean Water Service Provider Projects Database.
All right, thanks. I'm going to introduce Chris Dubin from our staff. Chris, you want to go live here? One of the items in our work list, punch list from DEC is to begin to develop, I won't say really developing a database. It's basically the state has a database, but we're going to try to make a process here on our webpage so that the public can know what projects are potential projects, the status of projects. And the kind of discussion here is to really, I'm going to have Chris walk through some of the initial project data grab from the state. But the kind of feedback, and I'll let Chris elaborate, what other attributes do we want listed in this database for now? Again, we don't want to duplicate the giant watershed projects database, but we wanted to have enough information so that the public can find it useful And then we also want to talk about a process for you guys, how to update the data in this database. So I'll turn it over to Chris. This is our first sort of discussion session on it. So let's, let's go here till the end and stay on as long as you can. But like I said, it'll be a pretty quick discussion, and Chris just wants to collect some feedback from you guys. So go ahead, Chris.
Thanks, Dan. Yeah, I don't know if I can take over a screen.
You should
Yeah.
be able to share, yeah.
Okay, so let's see here. Dan and I have been talking over the last couple of weeks about kind of where to start with this, proof of concept, or just kind of getting some ideas out there. And what we've done is taken the Basin 5 subset of the Clean Water Service Provider data set and migrated that over into spatial data. One of the challenges initially off the bat was that only about 250 of the 367 locations in Basin 5 actually had lat longs. So this is not by any means all of the project locations in the watershed project database for Basin 5, but we wanted to get something out there to show you all. We brought it into ArcGIS Online. I have the Basin 5 sort of outline here, but this is one of Esri's newer technologies. It's a dashboard. Its intent is really to show current status of spatial data, right? So you have a map that is symbolized in some manner, and it is sort of a current snapshot on things. Now, I'm sure you all would know that all of these really should be listed as proposed, but I created some dummy data just to kind of show you what we're working with here. But some of the key takeaways are that, you can click on any one of these points and see the discrete data fields. Again, I hid a couple, just hid, not deleted, things like the parent 2, which had very little data in it. Oh, wait, no, it's still there. Okay, so we can add or hide or show any relevant fields we want. Again, I just migrated the entire Clean Water Service Providers data set over, so all of those fields were there. What we've already added is a new field called URL. We can dump any URL we want in here. This should take us to just, I think I defaulted to just the QUIS, the Clean Water Advisory Committee homepage, but we can very easily, create URLs for maybe a separate project website that can link to whatever. And then additionally, so for example, what does the maintenance and sort of operational day-to-day look like? This entire database is simply on our ArcGIS Online account. We can go into here, select that point, edit it, and change it from, let's see, go here, proposed to 100% design. Hit close. I think if we save this, this should, in theory, update on the fly to orange. Let's see if this works. And there we go. So the idea is that with this data set on our CCRPC ArcGIS Online account, simple edits to the status are extremely easy to execute. Easy enough that, we could provide internally a handful of people access to it. Again, I don't know what we really haven't really thought about what it would look like for outside parties to have access to editing this information or not. It's definitely something we can explore. And then the other sort of next step to this possibly is looking to create sort of a work history or a history in general of these points, which may require a little bit more engineering of the data structure and some additional build outs. But it's very easy to edit data in this system the way it's currently designed. Additionally, adding new fields is also very easy, hiding existing fields temporarily, et cetera, et cetera. So again, these are all interactive and dynamic, so you can select certain aspects of this data and go from there. So that's a very quick overview of it. Any questions, comments?
Chris, just one comment. Are you going to be able to pull out of this like a list of projects, phosphorus reduction and cost?
Microphone, Chris. Yeah, he should be able to add fields about cost, phosphorus reduction. So I think as project, so one of the things here is like, what additional fields do you want Chris to add? Because we could add cost is an easy one, project sponsor, because some of them, some of them are already in there as for example, the ones in Charlotte, that's straight out of Lewis Creek Association there. So project sponsor would be one, cost. Would be
Right,
one.
and once any of those data fields are added and populated at any level, simply taking the attribute table or the data table associated with the spatial data is extremely to export on the fly and just turn into Excel and email out.
Right, so if you want to type in the chat, what other data fields you want Chris to add, because it's easier to do on my, rather than piecemeal, get a bunch of them at once. And I'll work with Chris on this for, project, manager or sponsor or something like that for projects that already have a history of one of you guys already working with them, funding source. And then obviously, we'll have costs, and yeah.
I'll also adding new points is also extremely easy in this as well, Dan. So that's definitely something to consider if we choose to go with maybe a different solution.
Yeah. Okay, there's some things in there in the chat, yeah. So again, this is sort of a first snapshot of it. Again, we basically, the idea is just to make it compatible with the state's project database. And again, not to be, the other thing too is Chris and I have talked about having a SharePoint site within our server here. We use SharePoint now. So is the idea that we'll yes, Dean, I think that's one idea. Obviously, the state database will be the ultimate authority, but it should be easy to grab data off of the state website and put it into here. But we ideally, if we can, and Chris is going to explore this, to have you, the council members, have ability to go in and edit data on here. Because these are going to be your, once things are up and running, you guys here on the call are going to be the ones doing a lot of the projects. And I don't want to have to call you and say, hi, send me a batch import file. You guys go in, edit the data, attach a photo. And then I think as projects get going, ideally we use a Teams format and there's a SharePoint link or a folder where you guys can begin to upload, PDFs and verification, inspection reports, all that kind of stuff, plans, the cost proposals. So we don't necessarily want this database to encompass everything, but we want to make it easy for the public, and also easy for, so when the public sees 5, 6, 10 months from now a list of projects for being voted on, they can quickly go to the webpage and find the projects and get a sense of what it's about. That's what I hope.
Yeah, and again, we're running into this same sort of potential problem with the municipal roads general permit and the road erosion inventory management of that data is like, we can build the system pretty easily, but how does it integrate with the state system, right? What's that back and forth? What should that back and forth look like? Obviously the authority is on DEC, that should be the authoritative data set, but again, these are more just like things to think about with what sort of tech solution we should build, at least for the time being. How frequently do we need to send data updates to DECs? Is that, something we should think about automating or not? Yeah, And again, like Dan kind of pointed out, one idea is if each one of these locations is going to be a lot of content frequently, notes, pictures, data files, could we really use this as just an overall general status and then use that URL function to a SharePoint website, which really contains like the entire project history, data files, et cetera, et cetera. That was just one idea we had.
Whoa, nice. Like it.
And I can send around a link to this in the chat. Actually, it should be public, so you can chew on it for a little bit. And I'll send my email as well. Just send me anything, any thoughts you have.
Thanks, Chris.
Okay. Since we're a little bit over, we'll move through the last two agenda items, hopefully quickly. Just want to provide a space for any updates as needed from quiz staff, DEC, Basin quality members, and anyone that's here today.
Yeah, so just so again, just to recap, we'll be at the quiz staff level, be working on that RFQ. We're getting more feedback on the policies. I'll tweak that up. And then internally, CCRPC will be amending our procurement policy to a little more descriptive. We have to make some distinctions because we have now this DEC pot of money, and we usually have Commerce Department money and federal transportation money. So we're making tweaks in our procurement language, adding a little more detail about sub-grants, because essentially a lot of this will be sub-granted money. So yeah, so that's what we'll be working on. And then I probably yeah, I'll stop there.
Okay, doesn't look like there's any more comments. Our next meeting is scheduled for 10 a.m. on Wednesday, May 18th. Do we briefly want to discuss any ideas for the agenda on that day?
Yeah, I think we'll have a co-benefit. The policies, we'll definitely circle back to that document. Whether or not we formally vote on it, we'll see. Initial discussion of co-benefits, which is, again, that's a metric that, or should I say, it's going to be a scoring system that it sort of empowers the quiz to do work to tweak the score of a project based upon the co-benefits. So again, the primary driver will be the phosphorus reduction benefit. We want to talk about hazard mitigation or ecosystem benefits, public education, if there's any diversity, equity, inclusion benefits to a project, things like that. So.
Dan, there's a question from Lauren. If anyone's unable to attend the meeting, should they be reaching out to you, myself, and Ken, or just you? What do you?
Yeah, you could just contact me, but if you want to include Molly as the vice chair and Ken as the chair, that'd be great. So they have a heads up. And yeah, so that. Yeah, those would be the main agenda items. I think we may talk about a little bit of hopefully the RFQs are out the door by then, or at least one of them by then. Yeah, and then we may think about how we do it. Hopefully we'll have some more feedback from DEC about the process of funding or getting a project ripe for consideration by the Basin Water Quality Council is really what it's about. So presumably something's got to go to DEC first, the DEC to bless it and agree with the calculation of the phosphorus reduction benefit. And hopefully we'll have more detail on that as far as process for review and funding of projects.
And Dan, apologies, has the council seen the actual phosphorus reduction target and that methodology that DEC created? And so just we all know what
I gave a little overview of it. And I know I've spread the word about the whole hearing they had on the phosphorus reduction scoring. That was out for public notice, so I've sent out some of that information. But if you've got something you can put in the chat that's handy, we can do that. But But I've been letting all the council members know about, any of those DEC public hearings on their processes, so.
Can I just confirm that the plan is to meet monthly for the next year or so?
Yeah, maybe not year, but May, June, probably July and August as well, but maybe hopefully we can take a break once the policies are informed and then the grants are out the door. We could take a little break for a month or two. But yeah, at least for the time being, we're meeting monthly.
All right, thank you.
Great.
All right. If there's nothing else, I would like to make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I'll second it.
All in favor? That's what I'm saying.
Hi.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. All right, so long.